When I found out that I was going to have the opportunity to sit here and chat with you, Humble the Poet, I was completely ecstatic, and I want to tell you why. My son, okay, he's 17 years old, so he's always like, you know, Mark, check out this and check out that, and he's always talking to me about checking out just, you know, those things on YouTube that you talk about. Yeah. And the reason is that I find that, you know, that generation is so intrigued with you, and, you know, now I am intrigued with you, is because you're always about asking the question, whatever that question may be. Yeah. And I checked out your YouTube channel, and I've been following you for, you know, a couple of years now, and I see how your personal brand has grown by default of all of the different ways in which you communicate your message and what you believe in. Mm-hmm. You've become a brand. Yeah. How does it feel when people say that to you?
I actually don't mind it, because again, I try to be a lifelong student, and the world of business and the world of marketing and branding, there's so much creativity that's involved in it. I really appreciate that. So just to see, you know, it was really difficult in the beginning to see how things are going to play out in the long term, and now that I have about 4 or 5 years under my belt, I can actually see how things are working and see people who've been there since day one and have allowed me and encouraged me to evolve into the person I am, and as well as kind of learning about what I was really doing. You know, kind of started off without a purpose. You know, I was scratching certain itches and not even realizing it, and then kind of just letting it go where it needs to go, and things are kind of falling into place slowly now, and it feels good.
You come from an education background. Yeah. I was reading your bio and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, you were an elementary teacher. Yeah. Did a part of your still teaching, which is really what your brand is about on a lot of levels, kind of come from that world of education and academia that, you know, you were a part of?
Definitely. I think the first thing that I learned as being a teacher is the educator mindset is, if they don't get it, we're doing something wrong.
Right.
And what happened at that point was I was working, so I was trying to get involved. You know, once you got your day job and you got your salary, everything's kind of set, you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do with the other 4 or 5 hours in my day after work, and try to give it some meaning. So I tried to get involved in certain community aspects and social causes, and I started to realize, especially a lot of people who worked with the youth did not know how to deal with youth, did not know how to speak to youth, and when they were unsuccessful, they would write off the kids. They're like, oh, these kids don't get it. Oh, these kids don't know what they're talking about. And as an educator, somebody who's trained to speak with kids, I kind of understood, like, no, you actually don't know how to speak with them. So that, in combination with, you know, just loving the arts, loving hip hop, loving everything, kind of realized that I learned a lot through various artists and the music they were sharing with the world, and how they were sharing it, and realizing that, you know, you want to be able to connect with people, but at the same time, not disconnect by saying, well, you know, I'm heavily educated and you're not. Let me use a bunch of big words and sound like I'm in a textbook. You don't want to do that. You want to kind of talk to them at their level, and take ideas and chunk it in a digestible manner. So I just started taking ideas that I found interesting and asked myself, how could I explain this to an 8-year-old? And if you can explain it to an 8-year-old, then a teenager gets it as well, so does somebody in their 20s. And people appreciate that, because some of these concepts are heavy, and they don't want to get, especially with this generation and the attention span that we now have, they don't want to get bogged down with a lot of heavy words. So that's really heavily influenced what I do now.
Absolutely, and you do it in so many different ways. You're so multidisciplinary. I mean, the spoken word artist, rapper, you know, documentary. I mean, there's a documentary that's been done on you called Humble the Poet. And there's a lot of, I'm noticing there's a lot of fascination and intrigue with you as an artist. I mean, Rolling Stone has done stuff on you. You know, Times of India, you name it, Huffington Post. Everyone has told an aspect of your story. If you were to encapsulate what that story is, what would you say?
I'm somebody who wants to bring ideas to life in any way, shape, or form. So whether it's, you know, through writing a book, writing a rhyme, designing a t-shirt, doing anything, I really enjoy the concept of bringing things to life, which may not be any different than people having families, raising their kids, or what have you. I think what I'm also trying to do, being somebody from Rexdale, being a son of a cab driver, is I'm really trying to show that this stuff is completely possible. It's not out of reach. I've had quite a bit of success, but I've never had that big break. I didn't get discovered by Puff Daddy and get a big bag of money. I've been doing this very slowly, very persistently. I've been building a community as opposed to just trying to hit a general public. I've been developing an honest, authentic relationship with the people that follow my stuff. And I really want that to be shown. And I try to surround myself with people who are also doing that, whether it be Superwoman, whether it be our boy Simpuller who just got to the NBA, anybody who's trying to do something larger than life. Because I do think when we're kids, we all have those larger than life dreams, and then somewhere along the lines they just disappear. And every kid has these wonderful, wild dreams, whether it's to be an astronaut, whether it's to be a movie star or something, and they have to realize like we're always going to have astronauts and movie stars. Those are people, those are normal people. So I really want to show that, and I really want people to understand that a lot of the obstacles that we deal with are self-imposed. You know, people are asking me questions like, well, doesn't your appearance get in the way? Well, if you think my appearance gets in the way, then it's going to get in the way.
Yes.
You know, that doesn't come up unless it's brought forward. So we give value to our obstacles and our challenges when we acknowledge them.
Absolutely, and I think that that's really important in today's society. I mean, I'm a generation before you. Mm-hmm. I'm back from the day, you know, obviously, you know, being from England. You know, the time that I, you know, basically went through this whole kind of teenage transformation phase was back in the 80s. You kind of remind me of someone that, you know, I grew up with, but she was female, Mira Sile, who was very much a spoken word artist. She would talk about these very fundamental, you know, aspects of, you know, how she felt people should view life and themselves from their own perspective, as opposed to those that have been inflicted or imposed on them. You're very similar to that. Yeah. You do it from a very multidisciplinary, artistic perspective. So in that way, you will kind of remind me of Waris Alawalia. You know, so you know, I found you to be a very intriguing, kind of provocative artist from that perspective. You know, I know that your focus, you know, seems to be more attractive to, you know, the younger generation, as you mentioned, people who are a lot more in tune with consuming content from a digital or mobile platform, people who don't have that much kind of, you know, attention span. I know that's why, you know, your videos are, you know, very to the point. You know, short, sweet, the message is out, and let's see, you know, where it goes. Where would you like to see yourself as an artist go beyond what you're doing today?
I think I'm headed there already. So I think what I want to continue to do is discover, learn, process, and then kind of regurgitate for others to be able to kind of understand that. I think after I released the first book, and the first book talks about everything from anxieties to regrets to happiness and misery, a lot of people assume that I was writing about things that I might have cured myself of. Like, oh, I don't have any anxiety, that's why I can write about it. But it wasn't. What I was actually doing was sharing personal conversations with myself and changing the eyes to we and what have you. So what I realized is, you know, I'm very fortunate that this job of mine also involves a lot of travel. And travel is hands down the best education anybody could ever receive. So when I go to different places, I just get overwhelmed with stimulation and I learn things. And I'm really trying my best to kind of synthesize those and create idea and try to simplify those as well. And sometimes, you know, you have an amazing experience, you can't turn that into a 2-minute video, but I mean, that's kind of what I want to continue. And this is such a great time in life now because we control the means of distribution, meaning, you know, I can release, you know, even 5 years before me, there was a generation of people making music and art, and they were dependent on traditional media. They were dependent on getting on radio, getting on TV, and the radio and TV will kind of set the standards of what works and what doesn't. A guy like me was able to go straight to YouTube, start my career with social media, grow while social media grew at the same time, and that allowed me to not have to focus on reaching as many people as possible. It allowed me to focus on reaching a type of like-minded people who want to learn and who want to grow. So for me now, moving forward, is I can be a lot more vulnerable, a lot more explicit. I can be a lot more personal, and I can connect with people on that level. And I think, you know, especially with the type of direction the world is headed into. I think a lot of people are looking for that.
And is that why you decided to put out Unlearn 101?
Unlearn, well, actually, it's amazing that it was such an organic process. The writing actually came from my frustrations with music, because the creative process of music involves so many other people. You know, I can write a song, I can write it to a beat, but I need someone to create the music. I need someone to be in the studio while I record. I need someone to help me shoot the music video. So that process was very difficult, because a lot of the people in my circle are not doing this full time. So they're working, you know, they're working their day jobs, some of them are in school, and then plus they all have family obligations and what have you. So when I started doing this full time, my pace of output started to increase, and it was very difficult to work with people who can keep up with me. And instead of bumping heads with them, I kind of sat down with people and said, well, what could I do? What could I do to be more consistent and stay in contact with people? Because I was releasing content once every 2-3 months at that point. And it was actually Lily, Superwoman. She's like, you know, what could you do every day? What can you do every day that requires nobody else? And I said, I can write. So she's like, well, start that. So I just started writing on my Facebook, posting concepts, ideas about anything and everything. And then it was actually the community that came back and said, you should put this together. You should make a book. You should make a book. And then that sent me on a whole new tailspin in a whole different direction, where, you know, my last concert in New York, half of it was full of people just wanting to hear about the book. They were there for the music, and now I'm trying to figure out the best way to consolidate this artistic thing that I've become.
Well, as I told you when we started the interview, you're a brand, whether you want to like it or not like it. The facts are the facts, right?
And I guess the challenge is trying to understand the brand myself.
Yes.
So I can articulate that to the world, because sometimes you feel like Will Smith, where people forget that he raps.
Yes.
You know, and I learned early not to fight it, you know, and that's why I got involved in modeling. I got involved in a lot of the visual arts as well, because I do understand that, you know, you have to hit them from every corner that you can, and if they like the way you look and that's all they care about and they want to see the selfies, and let them see the selfies. It's all about connecting with people the way they want to connect.
Absolutely. Is that a part and parcel of why you decided to then go into you know, foraying into acting? I mean, of course you went from like the music videos into acting, you know, the movie with Deepa Mehta. How did that all kind of come about for you?
Well, the movie with Deepa Mehta is I'm just being myself. So it's just a scene where they come to a Humble the Poet concert.
See? That's what you call branding.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is great. And I mean, that was, I can't even take any credit for that. That was actually people in the cast recommending me to Deepa, and them sharing myself with her, and then her being like, wow, how come I never seen this guy before? And then we connected. But I had also been part of a short film called Bo Beer the Barber, which I co-wrote with Shane Gill, who was the director. And again, it's the concept of bringing ideas to life. And yeah, definitely, it's kind of understanding as well that, you know, you can do a project like a film, and because you already have a name behind you, people will come and check it out. And we had a great premiere, and it worked out very well. And again, for me, it just comes back to having a bunch of ideas and living this life long enough to realize that nothing's impossible.
Right.
So I've actually written a full-length script as well that I finished it about a year and a half ago, and I kind of let it sit on the shelf while I further my brand, because I realized the stronger the Humble the Poet brand is, the easier it is to knock on doors.
So what would you say to all those people that come across you for the first time and aren't quite sure what to make of you? What would you say to them is what or who you are?
I think the simplest is a catchphrase I start my videos with, where I say I have 10 years to fill a stadium, but only 2 minutes to fill your cranium. And
I love it.
That's pretty much the concept where it all belongs. You know, my aspirations are as large as they can be. You know, I want whatever is humanly possible. I want to be able to experience it. If it exists, I know I can experience it, whether it's seeing parts of the world, whether it's meeting certain people, whether it's bringing things to life. But at the same time, I understand that can only happen one person at a time. That can only happen one day at a time, and it's quite a journey that way. And it's kind of me trying to be as authentic as possible. And in this world of, you know, give me the simplified version of things. You know, a lot of people especially what I realized within the South Asian community already, you know, by looking at the appearance or what have you, they already have this idea of what you must be.
Right.
And then if they find out certain information, or if you have certain lifestyle choices that they don't agree with, then all of a sudden, you know, there's a conflict, and it's no longer about the content that I put out. So I've been very fortunate to gain exposure outside the community to people who don't have a context, who just see a beard and something wrapped on my head and don't have a previous concept, positive or negative, and they're willing to take what I have to say at face value, which means a lot.
But have you ever had those issues where the flip side is, you know, what you're facing, where they see the beard and the turban and they have their perspective of terrorism, of, you know, you must belong to kind of this, you know, this pop cultural, you know, identity that's been created by the media?
I actually have a chapter in the second book that I'm finishing up right now, and it's called Osama, and it's about all my experiences being called Osama and how many of them were actually positive experiences. So like being in the Dominican Republic, for example, when they call you Osama, it's a term of endearment because they're not pro-American.
Right.
When you're in Cuba, they call you Osama because that's not, because again, it's context, and it's no different than maybe if we see somebody who looks like somebody or what have you, but it's the context for them. And again, in Cuba, it was positive because they're not pro-American. I just came back from Peru, and in Peru it was interesting because the adults would say Osama, I could hear them whispering it. The kids would all say Rasta. Because again, some of these kids are like, you know, 13, 14, so now 9/11 means nothing to them as well. And it all goes back to context. So it's kind of been long enough to the point where you just realize that you're different. And even maybe if I'm in the subway and I see a guy with a hot pink mohawk, you know, he might catch my eye and I might get caught staring, and I do understand the element of that.
Yes.
I think when it comes to looking at my appearance and letting that be a heavy basis of prejudice is actually within the community.
Right.
Not on the outside. I don't think somebody who has little context of what they see on the outside will judge me as much. They might be a little bit surprised that I'm speaking English, but I mean, I've traveled enough, I've performed in enough hip-hop venues now for people to kind of give me a chance, and once I kind of prove myself to them, they're like, okay, this dude's cool, and there's really no question about what's his background or what have you. Within the community, there's already people like, well, I'm raised to believe that people with beards and turbans need to be like this, and you don't seem to be like that, so I'm going to have an issue with you. But again, nothing that ruins my day or even gets in the way. It's just part of it. And again, I grew up in hip-hop, and hip-hop, the one thing about hip-hop is it's not a welcoming art form. It's a closed-door art form, and you have to force your way in and hold your ground while you're there. And if you can do that, then you'll eventually, hopefully, earn your spot or continually fight for it, which is fine. I'm totally okay with that.
You know, you've totally earned your spot. I know that you'll never really see that you've earned it just because you're truly an artist. An artist never see that. But you know, I'm sitting here chatting with you has been really a pleasure for me. I'm really excited about all the stuff that I know is going to happen for you. I really thank you for coming to chat with me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and I love just sitting here and just letting you talk and letting you, you know, tell people about things that you believe in just through the things that you've done. And I know there's so much more going to happen. I know as your story, your journey of life continues to evolve. Yeah. I know there's going to be so many different ways that we're going to get facets into even our own lives. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, sweetheart. You are a gem.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see so much more that's going to come from you.